I wanted to make a detailed video on how to ace the interview process. We're going to start with obviously how to open the call, how to sell yourself and explain why you applied at the company. As well, we're going to go over how to answer their questions, but also how to make this a really good conversation and work in 3 different types of questions that you're going to be asking: technical questions, cultural questions, and personal questions. And then finally, how do you bring all of this together and close the interview very well so that you set yourself up for the following interview before the call is even over. Opening the call is extremely important. This is when you're going to build that initial relationship with the recruiter, build some rapport. So definitely start off, ask them how they are, thank them for even jumping on, and really pay attention to what they say. Maybe ask them how their day is. If it's a Friday, start the call off with like, "Happy Friday. Are you looking forward to anything this weekend?" And then you can start to build a relationship, talk about maybe what you've got going on, or any day of the week. Maybe it's Monday. Ask them how their weekend was. It's Wednesday. Ask them how their week is going. Now, secondly, talk about where you're from and talk about where they're from. So usually they're going to ask like, "Hey, where are you calling in from?" But you can be the first one to ask that too. Maybe they say a place that you've traveled to or a place you would want to go. Definitely mention that as well. And even talk about the weather. It's cliche, it's cringy, but everybody can relate to the weather and how it is. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. So the first thing you want to do is prepare and research the company. You want to research on LinkedIn. Who are you interviewing with? See if you have anything in common. Then you want to research, what does this company sell? What makes this company different, or what stands out about their values, their mission statement, their product, or their solution? And then as well, you want to research the job posting. What are they actually looking for? Line in ASDR, account executive, or whatever position you're applying for. You just want to know, and honestly, even have that up and look over that while you're on the interview so you know what they are expecting from you. I personally like to use the STAR method when I'm answering questions, which consists of situation, task, action, and response. So for an example, if they say, "Tell me a little bit about yourself," or "Tell me about a time you overcame an obstacle," you're going to want to give a situation that you had to overcome an obstacle, or give a situation that explains a little bit more about yourself. Then you're going to go over a task. So if it's an obstacle, maybe at your previous job you did customer service and you had a really upset customer. You're going to give a good context of the situation and the task at hand. So say you were a cashier, you had an upset customer come to check out with you. Now, what actions did you take? These are going to show a lot of qualities about you that should be positive and transferable to the new job that you are doing. So for an example, say you're very patient, you know how to troubleshoot, escalated the situation, then you found management, so you know how to reach out to other people and ask for help. And then in that situation, when you had that mad customer trying to check out, you de-escalated the situation, you calmed them down, you let them know you were going to get the problem solved, and then you reached out to management to handle the situation. That's how you get it solved. So then you go over the last one, result. The result was that the manager ended up taking over, we got the customer refunded, and the customer left very happily. They came back. Problem solved. But by answering using the STAR method, you're actually covering every single point. And interviewers, recruiters, hiring managers love when you answer like that, honestly. When companies are asking me, "Yeah, so what made you apply here? Tell me a little bit about yourself." How I answer it is I tell them about qualities and things about me that would make me a great candidate for this fit. So I usually will start with, "Yeah, I've worked in sales for the past few years. I'm an avid reader. I love to read books about self-development, about sales, or just interesting nonfiction books too." And then I'll go into my recent experience or why I got into sales. So I'll say, previously I did real estate sales and I loved just building those relationships with people compared to I was in college for computer science beforehand. And while I like the real estate side of sales and I also like the tech side of the computer science, I wanted to be in a fast growing industry like your company. And I wanted to be at one of the leading competitors or leading companies within the industry, which is what made me apply. And having that tech side and having the sales side in real estate is what made me want to apply for this position. Now, at this point, you're in the meat of the interview. This is where questions are getting thrown at you, but also you should be throwing questions right back at the recruiter, sales manager, or whoever you're being interviewed by. So for example, maybe they're asking about a time when you worked off of KPIs or metrics and you don't know what that is. Well, what I personally have said when I've been asked that and confronted with questions I don't know how to answer, I'll give a really, really short, concise, brief answer of, yeah, well, in the past, I haven't worked off of any specific KPIs. I did have a real estate position where we did not have any numbers or metrics we needed to hit, but I personally was doing $300 a day, or as a cashier, I was ringing up 500 clients a day, or 50 clients an hour. So you're just gonna wanna give any type of position where you worked off of a number, whether it's customer service and you answered a certain amount of calls a day. Honestly, any number, any position that you can give, that's what you would wanna answer. But then you wanna follow up with a really good question to take the heat off of you and put it back on the recruiter. So something I would say is, I maybe only did KPIs on my last job where I had to make sure I was at least ringing up 50 customers an hour, and maybe I had to pitch our Target card or our Best Buy card. But that does bring me to one of my questions. Can you tell me a little bit more about the metrics and the KPIs that your current sales representatives are working off of? And pretty much they're going to just tell you what numbers you need to hit daily. So maybe it's 20 outbound emails a day or 50 outbound calls a day. And the next thing you're going to ask is, great, and then what does the quota look like for your sales reps or your account executives? And then ask what percentage of the team is actually hitting that quota. So when you're interviewing, these jobs are going to be paying a base salary on average of $50K, but on target earnings is what you're going to earn, including the base salary plus bonuses and commissions. So for an example, if a company has $75,000 on target earnings, you want to know what percentage of their current employees are actually making that 75 by asking them what percentage is actually hitting that sales quota. And finally, a good question to ask is like, what is the quota even based on? Did they just choose a random number with a bunch of zeros at the end? Or like, is it based on, say, the top sales rep and then 75% or 50% of what the top sales rep is doing over a couple years? So definitely ask that question. It's going to show that you know what you're talking about. Now, after you've got the technical questions out the way, you're going to want to ask about the cultural questions. So, and then too, I'll throw in a couple more questions for technical stuff. So ask them about like the tech stack that you're going to be giving. So are they going to give you like Zoom info? Are they going to give you free equipment? Are you going to be using Mac? Are you going to be using Windows? Are you going to be getting tools to do your email outreach? Ask those type of questions. And then next, you're going to want to go to the culture. So how often does your team, I know it's a remote, but do you ever do like company events, company trips? Ask about the culture, ask about the management style, ask if they micromanage. So you're going to want to dive a little bit into personal questions. So ask the recruiter or whoever you're meeting with, like, hey, what are some of your likes and dislikes about this company? Or compared to your last role, what are the pros about this? Or what are some of the cons? So a good question would be like, hey, I see you've been here for 3 years. Based on everything that you've learned, if you had to start over in this role, knowing what you knew now, would you do anything differently, or what would you do differently? So a good question as well. You can ask them, for example, like, can you rate your sales team? Like, how good is your sales team performing now? 1 out of 10, but you can use 7. That's also a really good question. Any question that revolves around a number, ask them to rate, like just rate anything about the company. What is the culture like? 1 to 10, but you can't say 7. That's usually the go-to number, so it will really make them think as well. Now, at this point, if you've asked a question after every question that you've been asked, the time is probably getting close to the end of the interview. You've probably had a really good conversation. Hopefully you've made them laugh, or maybe they made you laugh, and you've just started to build a good relationship, but time's running low, so now you need to close the call. Well, the first thing I do when I close it is thank them for their time. Usually towards the end of the call, they're going to keep asking you like, hey, are there any other questions you have for me? Make sure you ask those questions that we talked about earlier. Even research the company, write down some other questions about maybe they've got 3 different services or 3 different solutions. Hey, as an SDR, is there one specific solution that I would be working the most closely with or selling the most? Or is there a specific vertical or industry that I'd be focused on? And then as well, like, After you just ask those questions and it's less of a conversation, it's more of just like a back and forth and time's low, what you're gonna do, thank them for their time. Whether you get the job or not, you're gonna wanna ask, is there anything holding you back from moving forward with me as a candidate? Let them say what they say, and then just be prepared. It's maybe not enough experience in a certain industry. Let them know, like, yeah, while I don't have as much experience specifically selling maybe financial software, I do have experience working with different type of customers in different industries. I also have done my own outbound campaigns. And I've also networked on LinkedIn and email with a lot of different companies that I'm interviewing with. So I know I would be an excellent addition to your team, and I'm a fast learner. I know I can. What are the next steps? I am interviewing with some other companies, so I would love to get that next call on the calendar. Can we get that done today while we're still on the phone? They may say yes, they may say no, but you did a very good job of closing it. And that's something that they also will relate to the team, that they controlled the call very well. They made sure to close the call at the end. They really pushed hard to get this next call on the calendar, and it's going to give you the benefit of the doubt when setting that next call up. Let's get it. And the final tip, I should have said this at the start, but please record your interview. Whether you've got one phone, two phones, computer here, computer there, there's different apps that you can use, different softwares that you can use, but record the interview. So one, you can learn from any mistakes that you've made. You can see what you did very well. And then also you're gonna wanna send a follow-up email, I would say in the next 24 hours or so after the interview. And if you have that recording, you can see exactly what you talked about and create some really good follow-up questions, or just relay that back to the recruiter of, hey, I really enjoyed our time. Thank you for answering my question on this, or thank you for giving me this information. And you know word for word what they said. So it makes it seem like you either took notes or you paid really good attention. Something companies love to see. So use those tips and let's kill these interviews and get these offers. And one more tip, if they ask about salary, if they say, what was your previous salary? What are you looking for in salary? I always let them know, like, yeah, while I do feel I was underpaid for my last role, I was hoping my new position wouldn't be based off of that. So can you just tell me a little bit more about the salary and budget that you guys have set aside for this role already? These companies always have a range for what they can pay new hires. All you have to do is ask. Do not be the person who throws out a number first and lowballs themselves. You want to let the company throw out a number first so that you can see how much they're paying for the role.